Welcome back to the Bill and Doug Show, making our national picks. Ohio State off this week. We have 6 other games that we are going to pick. Landis and I was dreadful last week. I am now 9-13 against the spread for the season, and you are 12-10 against the spread for the season. Last week I went 2-6, and you went 5-3. Should I just stop making picks?
Maybe. I think we should stop making picks generally so I can finish with a winning record.
Oh, that would be a good strategy. Bunch of goofy games last week. I thought there were 3 games in the end: Tennessee, Georgia, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, and West Virginia, Pitt, that we all picked. That I don't know if I want to say like the wrong team won, but certainly the team that you thought was going to win with 8 minutes left in the game did not win. But that's ball, man. That's just ball.
That is ball. Yeah. West Virginia game. That was one where like I was watching it and then I had to stop paying attention because the Ohio State game was starting. And then after the Ohio State game, I went back and was like, oh, just assuming Pitt won. And I saw the score. Yeah. I was like, oh, I guess they didn't win. Okay. So no, that was kind of a wonky week. You'll bounce back this week. I'm confident. You'll be okay.
At one of the ones last week, you picked Miami to kind of blow out South Florida, and I thought South Florida might hang, and then South Florida didn't really hang. Mm-hmm. I'll be curious to see how South Florida now going forward bounces back from that as they get into their conference schedule, and are they legitimately going to be in the fight to be the Group of 5 team in the playoff? But let's get to our games. We have a bunch of good Northern games. I think people know this, Landis, as we zoom in on the first game we're going to pick. I think people know this. This is probably the most important Big 12 game of the season. It's Texas Tech at Utah. By the betting lines, they are the 2 favorites in the Big 12 right now. Certainly Iowa State deserves to be in that conversation, but you look at the way Kansas State has completely fallen apart. You look at Arizona State, last year's champ, already has a non-conference loss. Beyond the betting odds, I do think that Utah and Texas Tech very well may wind up being the 2 best teams in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see how things materialize, but like Arizona State has not been great to start the year. Like Iowa State has been good, but maybe we just kind of get the eventual Dublin hangover, I think, came for Iowa State. So I think they're still in it, but these are, I think, the 2 best teams in the Big 12 right now. This would be my pick for a Big 12 championship game.
So Fox is making these guys play a 10 a.m. local kick so they can be the big noon game. Utah at home is favored by 2.5. Utah in wins over Wyoming, Cal Poly, and UCLA has outscored the opposition 137-25. Texas Tech in wins over Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kent State, and Oregon State has outscored the opposition 174-35. Mm-hmm. You and I all offseason were very high on Utah, and I think so far we have been proven correct in our belief in the Utes.
Yeah, it's been what you expect it to be, I think, right? Like they look like a team that can run the ball with anybody. They're really physical. I think the Wyoming game was kind of weird, like started slow, but they pulled away. But I think the defense maybe has been perhaps even a little better than maybe I was anticipating so far. It's hard to say because they haven't really played anybody great, and even like the UCLA wins like has not aged well. So we'll see. This will be a good test, I think, of where exactly Utah's defense is, but the offense certainly looks the way that I thought it would.
Devin Dampier, transfer quarterback, has been running the ball great. He has 33 carries for 198 yards. He's also completing 73% of his passes, 7 touchdowns, no picks. And then Wayshawn Parker, transfer running back, 27 carries, 192 yards. So, and then Cal Poly, like they kind of put the pedal down, and that was an easy win. But So 3 games in, their quarterback and their lead running back are both at nearly 200 yards. I feels like they're going to wind up, good chance to wind up with 2,000-yard rushers on this team. I think Utah's. If people got thrown off by how weird Utah's been the last 2 years, there's still a foundation of what they are with Kyle Whittingham. They got out of sort of that Cam Rising loop of injured quarterback and not having good backups, and it screwed them up for 2 years. They brought in Devin Dampier and Jason Beck, the offensive coordinator, as a combo, as a transfer from New Mexico. And like, remember when Utah was good? They just had a weird 2 years, and now this is the real Utah again.
Well, it's the real Utah again, but plus, like a plus version when you think about what they're doing offensively. They've always wanted to have like a physical run first offense, but it's never quite looked like this, right? So that brings a different level to this team. But yeah, I think it wasn't a talent thing. It was like they had terrible quarterback luck. And then I think in that, like, you know, I'm sure like Kyle Whittingham will probably say like they didn't coach it great when they encountered some adversity, but I figured they were rare for a bounce back, and this feels like what we're seeing.
All right, so I'll take Utah. I'm going to say Utah, which is favored by 2.5 at home. I'll take Utah 34-24.
Okay, so this is, by the way, a team that averages 290 rushing yards per game in Utah against a Texas Tech defense that gives up 41 rushing yards per game. Texas Tech last week against Oregon State. Oregon State had 22 carries for 8 yards.
Oh my gosh.
I'm taking Utah. I think Utah. I think you have like a portal defensive line against maybe the best offensive line in the country and a bunch of guys who have played together for a long time in a physical rushing attack at home. I'll take that. 38-31 Utah.
38-31 Utah. So like, this is a good one to watch. We would suggest that you guys tune in this one. I think you will be entertained. All right, let's get to a 3:30 game. It's Auburn at Oklahoma. I don't care that much. It's 3:30 on ABC. Oklahoma at home is favored by 6.5. I still maybe think in the end that the Oklahoma-Michigan game was more about what Michigan didn't do than what Oklahoma did do. And I'm wondering if Oklahoma is a little overrated in the moment. And then also this is like a weird, crazy revenge game because Jackson Arnold, who was Oklahoma's starting quarterback last year, was my pick to win the Heisman and got benched in like week 4, is now the starting quarterback for Auburn. And coming into this game, I think there's some people who are very eager to get on the Oklahoma bandwagon, and I'm not sure how strong that wagon is.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma's being puffed up a little bit. The defense looks legitimately pretty good. I do still think the offense is a lot of John Mateer make something happen.
Yes,
they have good, like Deion Burks is a good receiver, and they have good running backs. And the offensive line does seem improved, but I don't know. I did not come away from the Oklahoma-Michigan game thinking like Michigan was ready to roll through the SEC, right? And also in a game like this, which again I don't particularly care about either, you just want the funniest thing possible to happen, and that is Jackson Arnold going back to Oklahoma and beating them. So I'm going to pick Auburn 27-24.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Meteor. But I guess I have to make a pick because I put it on the list. So I also will take Auburn. Again, Auburn's a 6.5-point dog. What'd you say, 27-24 for your Auburn pick?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll take Auburn 31-22. All right. I guess I'm rooting for Jackson Arnold. My Heisman guy. Once upon a time, my Heisman
Plus
guy.
the super likable Hugh Freeze is the Auburn.
I can't. This is, I mean, for real. As soon as there's one thing with an SEC team that you find moderately palatable, you're reminded about why you actually hate them. And it's like, no, Doug, wait. Auburn is vile. It's like, no, I know they are. But and this is, again, much of what I think in sports is just pushing back against what I think is media groupthink and an incorrect consensus. And I can feel people getting fired up about Oklahoma. And my instinct then is to pick against Oklahoma. So that's enough. That's how powerful that instinct is. It overcomes the Hugh Freeze. The check his phone Hugh Freeze situation. That's how real this is. All right. This game matters much more. Michigan at Nebraska, 3:30 on CBS. Michigan is a road favored by 2.5 at Nebraska. Michigan let Bryce Underwood go. last week against Central Michigan. And after he did not run basically at all in the first 2 games, he had 9 carries for 114 yards last week. And it's funny, the Ohio State conversation around Julian Sand in week 1 against Texas was we didn't want to put too much on him. We were trying to be careful a little bit. And it worked. So our reaction to that is, oh, man, look at those guys. Look at those Ohio State coaches protecting their quarterback. How genius was that? I think the Michigan plan at Oklahoma was we don't want to put too much on Bryce Underwood. We don't want him to get hurt. We're not going to let him run. And I think maybe you're going to look back and say, what were they doing? Were they trying? Didn't they want to win? Why did they try to win at Oklahoma? Because now when you let this guy run, he can sling it and also he can run. And here we go. I think this might look like a very different Michigan team than we saw just 2 weeks ago in Norman.
We'll see. Did they let him go because
skeptical.
Yeah, did they let him go because it's time to let him go, or did they let him go because it's Central Michigan? Back on the road against what I think is a good Big Ten team in Nebraska, do they rein him back in? Is what's on my mind. I don't think it's a definite. Here we go. It's Bryce Underwood time.
Well, if they rein him back in, can they win?
Yeah, because their defense could play well, and Dylan Raiola can throw 3 picks. So yes, they can win that way. It's not. Well, I don't know. Is Nebraska better than Oklahoma? No. Could they be? Maybe. Would I say that now? No. I think they could be conservative and win the game. Yeah.
Okay. There's a chance for that. Nebraska, Emmett Johnson has run the ball well for them. 108 yards in the opener, 140 against Akron, 78 last week. Dylan Raiola, 8 touchdown passes and no picks so far. So you just put the kibosh on him. You said Dylan Raiola could throw 3 picks. Where's that guy? He hasn't thrown a pick yet.
This feels like a Dylan Raiola legacy game. Like,
I know.
Look good here or lose whatever favor you had left.
No, but it's also possible that Dylan Raiola is thinking of that because, like, I know. So he was the true freshman star quarterback in the Big Ten last year. Now that's Bryce Underwood. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our conversation this offseason was like, hey, don't forget that Dylan Raiola is pretty good because we were talking about Dante Moore and Julian Sane and CJ Carr and these first-year starting quarterbacks. And it's like, well, Dylan Raiola is not in that conversation because he started all of last year as a true freshman. So this is his moment to be the veteran and all the lessons that he learned last year that Bryce Underwood is currently learning. It is time for Dylan Raiola to apply them in a huge victory for Nebraska that would absolutely put them on a path toward the playoff. This is not guaranteeing anything, but this is a September referendum game for 2 teams that certainly have playoff aspirations, and certainly that Michigan already has a loss. This is Michigan's out of wiggle room if they lose this, right? And they might be out. But this is defining for Nebraska because if they win this, their next stretch is Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern. You're looking at the possibility, as much as I like Minnesota, you're looking at the possibility of 8-0 with Nebraska coming into your building. Excuse me, with USC coming into your building for the 9th game of the season. Like, this is what Nebraska is going. If Nebraska wins this, Nebraska is back. Nebraska is a real playoff contender. Matt Rule year 3, Dylan Raiola year 2, smart additions in the portal, the return of the black shirts. This is a tipping point that this could be Nebraska's greatest peak since Tom Osborne's national title if they beat Michigan this week. Is that putting too much on this?
It would be up there, I think, if you want to go back, starting after Tom Osborne left, like best Nebraska wins. This would be pretty high up there. I would imagine. If it happens, I think Nebraska's defense. It's hard to say because like they haven't played anybody the last 2 weeks. I thought they played well against Cincinnati. It was an opener, so I think you only take so much from it. But I think that defense has improved. The offense is better equipped to help Dylan Raiola. I'm just super fascinated to see what kind of step he's taking because I don't know. Even in that Cincinnati game, I was like, I don't know, man. Like this doesn't look like you got any better. And then the last 2 weeks, it's just like, what are you going to take from a game against Akron and a game against Houston Christian?
Yeah.
So, he is the player I'm most interested in watching in this game. And I really do think it sort of hinges on how he shows up. And it's not that he has to play. I don't think he has to play awesome, like out of his mind for Nebraska to win. He just can't go out there and lose them the game.
Yeah. Frank Solich had a Nebraska team that was number 1 in the AP poll at one point after Tom Osborne retired. So I'm a little out over my skis. But like last decade, they haven't finished in the top 25 of the AP poll at the end of the year in the last 12 years. So it would have a chance to be like their most meaningful win in the last decade, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they're going to get it. I'm going to take Michigan because I'm going to take like more of the full Bryce Underwood experience. And I do think these are two teams with defensive identities, but I'll take Michigan 23-20.
I'll take Nebraska winning a close one-score game, which would indicate progress for that program. 21-20.
21-20. Okay. Watch this. There are two really important Big Ten games this week, and this is one of them. I think this will be a good time at 3:30. All right, let's go to a 7:30 game on CBS. It's Washington at Washington State. Obviously, for Ohio State fans, a little bit of a scouting trip here.
Mm-hmm.
Washington on the road is favored by 20.5. Washington State, home of quarterbacks that teams can come steal in the portal, but in talking to Ohio State coaches this week, did you know, it's a look ahead a little bit, but Ohio State's on an idle week, so they can look ahead. Like I thought we got some like they respect Washington. They know that Washington's got some pieces.
Yeah, I think you have to respect the skill that Washington has on offense, and I think Ohio State. It's rare that Ohio State will play a team that I think has like two bona fide NFL cornerbacks, which is what Washington has. Although Takario Davis might not play in this game, I think.
Yes. It's what it sounds like. It sounds like a little bit that he got hurt. So they have two really good corners. Takario Davis, an Arizona transfer. It feels a little bit like maybe they're going to rest him this week to make sure he's ready for Ohio State.
Yeah. So that'll be like, if you're watching it from an Ohio State perspective, I guess keep in mind that whatever that other corner spot looks like will look different when Ohio State plays them. That's really what it's all about for me. Is like, I want to watch this game because I want to get eyeballs on Washington before Ohio State plays them. Like, Washington State is in a rough spot. They just got their doors blown off by North Texas. I just like they lost a ton. They're being remade. I like they hired from South Dakota State, Jake Rogers, is that his name? Or Jimmy Rogers, I think. Like, I like the hire. Just it's a tough place now with the way that the sport has changed. So I don't know if Washington State's got it in them to make this rivalry game interesting.
And we would just Washington, I think their skill trio matches up with almost anybody in the country. Devon Williams Jr. at quarterback, Jonah Coleman at running back, and Denzel Boston at receiver. So they've only played 2 games because they already had a bye. Jonah Coleman through his first 2 games, Colorado State, 24 carries for 177. Who's UCD? That's Cal Davis, right?
Davis.
UC Davis. He went 15 for 111 and 5 touchdowns. So through 2 games, he has 288 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, and is averaging 7.4 yards per carry. Obviously, it's against inferior competition. But Jonah Coleman is about as good as it gets for college running backs this year, maybe short of Jeremiah Love. And it is just a reminder to people that Washington, it's a rebuilt offensive line that was a mess last year. It's much better this year. In analyzing this game, I'm a little curious, and God bless both these teams for keeping the Apple Cup alive after the death of the Pac-12. It's really important that they play this game. It used to be at the end of the year. It no longer is. It is a little bit of a weird spot to be on the road in a rivalry game the week before the number 1 team in the country is coming to your place. And that game, frankly, is not taking anything away from the Apple Cup because it is one of the best rivalries in college football. But the Ohio State game has a chance to be a defining game for this new era of Washington football. They always want to win the Apple Cup. It's a tiny bit of a look-ahead spot.
It is. Yeah, it's a look-ahead spot. They could, like, they're not going to most Apple Cups, right? You're probably saving stuff for the Apple Cup, right? Because you want to win that game. It's super important. But I don't know. This could be, I think, from Washington's standpoint, hope to get up and like sit on it and not have to show too much before Ohio State comes to Seattle. One other thing. So Washington in the offseason brought in Omari Evans, receiver from Penn State, and he has not played in their first 2 games. He was, nobody was really good at receiver last year for Penn State, but when Evans popped, he was like a big play guy. So it could be like an interesting running mate with Denzel Boston at receiver that Washington gets back this week, and then if everything goes well, would have for the Ohio State game in 2 weeks.
I will say it is. The line almost feels a little light to me, though, considering, as you said, that Washington State lost by 49 last week to North Texas. So, and if you think, I know we had some comment, we were talking about how good Washington might be, and someone said, like, they're not even a top 25 team. They probably should be. I think there's some real talent on this team, and they just, they haven't played a great team yet, so they haven't had a chance to show it. So I'm actually, even if I'm saying it could be a look-ahead spot for Washington, I'll take Washington to cover the 20.5, and I say 38-16 Washington.
Yeah, I'll take them to cover too. I have 42-10.
Okay. All right, then this is the biggest game of the weekend. Do you think it is getting the proper respect? It's NBC at 7:30 on Saturday night, Illinois at Indiana, and Indiana is a pretty big home favorite here.
Surprising.
It's 5.5, right? That Indiana is favored. Why do you think Indiana is favored by that much?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like you give them the 3 for being at home, and then I don't know where the other 2 come from, because it's not like some of the underlying numbers. Indiana has certainly played better than Illinois. Indiana hasn't played anybody. Illinois at least had to go play like a comp. Well, I would have said competent. They just lost to Tulane, but another power conference team in Duke on the road.
Yeah.
Indiana has played better. I think whatever the power ratings probably would show you that's the proper line, but it is a little jarring to see that it's so big. Yeah.
Dominated Indiana State last week, 73-0. Fernando Mendoza, Indiana quarterback in that game, 19 of 20 for 270 yards and 5 touchdowns. The week before against Kennesaw State, 56-9 they won. He was 18 of 25 for 245 and 4 touchdowns. In the opener against Old Dominion, he was 18 of 31 for 193, no scores. Listen, we spent a lot of the offseason saying, who's the next Indiana? Who's this year's Indiana? And somewhere along the way, you said, what if Indiana is this year's Indiana? They just are really good. I'm not sure Indiana could be this year's Indiana, because I think if you actually follow college football, your opinion of Indiana is too high, that Indiana can't be this year's Indiana because it's not a shock anymore. It's not that they can't be as good. And I do think their schedule is significantly tougher. So I think they could be as good of a team and not go 11-1 in the regular season, and maybe go more like 10-2 or 9-3. But Omar Cooper Jr. at receiver has been great for them so far, although a lot of it's against Indiana State. He had 10 for 207 and 4 touchdowns last week against Indiana State, just completely overmatched, and Kurt Cignetti's going to drub an in-state opponent. Elijah Surratt remains one of the best receivers in the Big Ten. And then they have a couple running backs. Like, they just have real dudes here. Like, is there any reason to doubt Indiana? Now, that's different than picking them to win, but is there a reason to look at Indiana and say that some chunk of last year and some chunk of the first 3 games this year is them just beating up on inferior opponents, and they really are not as good as people think?
Well, maybe, honestly, maybe like they're doing the thing again, right? If you look at, I saw like Tom Fornelli from the Cover 3 podcast earlier this week tweeted out like the success rate graph, and like you want to be in the upper right quadrant because that means you're really good on offense and really good on defense. And Indiana is the uppermost right quadrantist team because of what they've done this year. And it was similar last year, but they also did not play anybody who was going to tell you how real that was until November. And this is that kind of game, right? So I'm actually thankful that we're going to actually learn something about this team early on in the season, because the thing last year was like, man, that offensive line looks like it's really good until it wasn't, right? So and here comes Illinois that can get after you up front. So I'm on alert a little bit for Indiana is good, but it's still deficient a little bit on the line of scrimmage, at least offensively. And that might be the reason they lose a game like this. But the skill is legit. Fernando Mendoza is great. I think the defense is still very good. They're legitimate dudes on defense. Like the one question I have with Indiana is like, how good actually is your offensive line?
Yes. And Illinois has some guys who can get after you. Illinois, good secondary. I think a big part of this is also how good is the Illinois offensive line that brought so many guys back, but had a hard time protecting Luke Altmaier against Duke. This is a great veteran quarterback matchup between Luke Altmaier and Fernando Mendoza. I like the duo at running back, Caden Fagan and Aiden Lawfrey for Illinois. Hank Beatty has emerged this year. It's like, who's going to replace Pat Bryant at receiver for Illinois? He's been that guy. And this is so Indiana, like just thinking about what Indiana could be this year. They have this, then they have road trips to Iowa, Oregon, and Penn State left. Mm-hmm. So they're like, if Indiana's 11-1 again this year, Indiana's gonna be like the 3 seed in the playoff.
Yeah.
Right. We're not going to be like, oh, 11-1. Do they deserve to be in? Because that means they went on the road and beat either Oregon or Penn State and then handled their business against a lot of other teams, including Illinois. But this is Illinois' moment. This is one of their 2 moments, because then they have Ohio State coming in a couple weeks.
They have USC coming in, don't they, next week?
They do.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about USC in a second. It just depends like how real you think USC is. And I'm not being dismissive of Bambi, but this is if Illinois doesn't win this, it takes the shine off everything else. This is their first test, because certainly I don't think a 9-3 Illinois is not getting in the playoff. A 10-2 Illinois, depending how things shake out and what the context is, I think would have a chance. I think an 11-1 Illinois is in, right? And so Ohio State's the only game on that Illinois schedule that you would look at it and say, like, I don't think that's going to happen. But then otherwise, so it's Indiana, USC, then at Purdue, Ohio State, at Washington, a tough trip, but they finish Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, Northwestern. Purdue, Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, Northwestern are 5 games they should win. So then they're already 3-0. That's 8-0, and then their season comes down to 4 games. And this is their moment. Mm-hmm. This is Indiana's already shown it. Who's going to be this year's Indiana? Illinois was my candidate. This is so huge for Brett Bielema in Illinois, and Brett Bielema has been a winning coach. I think Luke Altmaier at Duke showed that he's a winning quarterback. I think they have winning players on their defense. I think it's about their offensive line. And this is do or die time for Illinois. I think if Illinois loses this game, they're not going to make the playoff. I think if Illinois wins this game, they have a very good chance to make the playoff.
I think so too. So who are you picking?
I'm picking Illinois.
Okay.
Because I believe that Illinois is capable of rising to the occasion, and I will pick Illinois 27-20.
Yeah, I'm picking Illinois as well. I actually think both defensive fronts are kind of going to get after it in this game. Okay. And I would trust Luke Altmaier to make a few more plays under duress, maybe than Fernando Mendoza right now. I also think it's going to be a shortened game and kind of lower scoring. So I have Illinois 24-21.
I like this Signetti Bielema coaching matchup too.
Yeah, me too.
This is two really good Northern coaches. I know Adam Rittenberg from ESPN wrote something about this week. This is just one of those that, like, I hope people realize how big this game is, how good these teams are, how much it matters to the storyline of college football this year. This is a borderline playoff play-in game in September, and it's what the new structure of the sport has created, and it's also what this new healthy middle tier of the Big Ten has created. Because the idea that, all right, well, there's a 12-team playoff, that doesn't mean that Illinois and Indiana have to both be factors in that, but they are. And this is good for Big Ten football that they're both in this case. And then this last game is also good for Big Ten football, except that it's in the middle of the night. It's on Fox at 11 p.m. Eastern. It's Michigan State at USC, so the Spartans get this 11 p.m. Body clock game because, like, they gotta play some of these games on the West Coast. USC's favored by 18.5. and it's me. I can't be completely dismissive of USC, even if I'm also not going to get all the way down the line toward believing in this. They have a lot of tough games the rest of the year. At Illinois, Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska, Iowa, at Oregon. Like, I don't think they're going to get through that and come out the other side as a playoff team. But they're pretty good so far, I guess.
The offense looks like it's a Lincoln Riley offense, which like they have not looked like for since they joined the Big Ten, or since last year, I guess. But I think they'll be able to score against most of the teams they play. It's just a matter of can they stop them. But it's not the defense is bad. The defense has improved and I think continuing to get better. I think they're squarely in that conversation behind Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State of next Big Ten team in the mix.
Okay. So like when I was like, like when you brought up USC, Illinois, you think that's a big deal because you think that's a game with perhaps huge playoff implications for maybe two teams that are competing to be the fourth best team in the league.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Jaden Maeva, looking like a Lincoln Riley quarterback, started 4 games last year, had been a transfer from UNLV. He's thrown for 295, 412, and 282. In the first 3 games, 6 touchdowns, no picks. A little clunky, though, like last week at Purdue, right? I don't know. Is that just a weird trip? And I think there was some, like that game was delayed by weather, and so stuff happened. So we're not taking too much away from that.
No, I've seen plenty of good teams go to Purdue and be a little clunky.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I just think that's what happens there. Yeah. It wasn't like it was ever in doubt, right? It was just like it wasn't as big of a blowout as you thought it was going to be.
Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon looking like real dudes at receiver for USC. So, but also Michigan State also looking. I don't want to be dismissive of Michigan State and your guy Aiden Childs. Like we like the progress there a little bit, don't we?
Yeah, they also went to overtime with the team that lost to Stanford. So,
no, I know.
I don't know.
42-40 win in OT over Boston College kind of looked well, but the whole thing is they beat up Boston College so much that Boston College then went and lost to Stanford because that's what happens when you play Michigan State. We don't want to spin it that way.
No, you can, sure, if you want to.
Yeah. You don't want to mess with Michigan State. Nick Marsh, 16 catches, 194, 3 touchdowns through 3 games. Again, I think it's a great conversation of who's the second best receiver in the Big Ten, because it might be Carnell Tate at Ohio State. It might be Denzel Boston at Washington. It might be Elijah Surratt at Indiana. It might be Nick Marsh at Michigan State. Isn't it nice to have some good skill in the Big Ten?
It is. Yeah. I would say that I think it's Carnell Tate pretty clearly.
Yeah.
I will admit that I'm closer to the situation.
Yeah, it might be a conversation for who's the third best, but there's candidates. There's good candidates. Aiden Childs has taken
around the league and see other good receivers.
Yeah, which sometimes you don't do. Aiden Childs has taken 8 sacks. He didn't take any against Youngstown State last week, but 4 each against Western Michigan and Boston College in the first 2 games.
Yeah.
So like, be on alert for that. USC is going to score. Does Michigan State have a chance to score with them at all, to be in range of trying to cover this 18.5?
With a good Aiden Childs game, yeah, the sacks worry me. If USC will try to get after him, like heat him up a little bit, because if the sacks thing is an offensive line conversation, yes, but it's also an Aiden Childs get rid of the ball situation.
Yes.
So we Aiden Childs has not like put together like a full like banger of a game yet, right? But the flashes are hard to ignore. If you get the flashes stacked on top of each other for a really good game, then yeah, Michigan State can hang. I just don't know that you're going to get that this early in the season on the road against what I think is a pretty good USC team.
This is exactly the kind of game that in my heart I would like to pick Michigan State to cover, but that's also why I went 2-6 last week. So I'll take USC 42-21 and I'll take USC minus the 18.5.
Yeah, I have 42-17.
42-17. Okay. All right. So those are our picks for our 6 games this week. We do this every week. We do the national picks on Friday. When Ohio State plays a game, we do an Ohio State pick show on Thursday. You can also find us on Substack, billanddoug.osu at Substack. Is that right? Did I say it right finally?
Close. billanddoug.osu.substack.com.
So you'll figure it out. You can go find us there. Big premium podcast this week about roster building through an Ohio State lens, but I think would also apply to any college football fan. It's not just recruiting anymore. It's recruiting, it's retention, it's the transfer portal, it's your the way you use your resources in NIL, the value that you look for, what you prioritize, and how everything's connected. And I think it's kind of a guide for college football fans to understand how their teams are going about their business these days, as opposed to the old world of just recruiting as many good players as you could get. So that's on our premium Substack list of content items this week. Pretty good slate, Landis. I'm especially looking forward to Texas Tech, Utah, Michigan, Nebraska, and Illinois, Indiana. Those are parcel those out. Those are the 3 windows.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 3 like super meaningful games for the playoff race involving our northern teams that we have a little bit more of an eye on.
Yep, it's going to be fun. And then, pay attention to Auburn, Oklahoma to see if chaos reigns.
Yeah, root for chaos. All right, that'll do it for this edition. Thanks to you guys for joining us, as always. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. Oh, you know what else is good, by the way? You know what's good?
A nice team logo polo shirt.
Oh, my God, it's so good. Brought to you by our good friends at Roback, right? They get it done. We would send you to roback.com and invite you to sort of like peruse, because they just have a lot of, it's like this time of year for this stuff, right? Where they have polos, they have quarter zips, they have hoodies, they have so many teams that they represent. And the thing that I like about Roback is, like, it represents your team, but it doesn't have to be like necessarily over the top. That you can get like, there's no doubt like who your team is when you wear it, but you can also wear it to like a nice outing. Like if you're having people over, it's a little different. And we know a lot of you have great sweatshirts and ball caps and stuff like that in your collection for your team, but this can just be like a little bit of a step sideways, or maybe even a step up with a piece of apparel from roback.com.
Yeah, you can wear a nice sport coat with some of the stuff and get away with it.
Yeah, so that's like a good look. So that's it's a look we would encourage for our fan base here at the Bill and Doug Show. So again, it's the fall stuff. It's like time to refresh your closet for the team that you love. The game day collection. You know what? We got a code for you. You put in BAD20 to get 20% off your first order at Roback. So again, that code is BAD20 to get 20% off your first order at roback.com. I, at the very least, would suggest that you just go to the website and start looking through stuff. And you can start thinking in your head like, oh man, which thing do I want to prioritize on my list? Because I kind of like that one and I kind of like that one. So go on over and check it out. See what you think. All right. That'll actually do it now. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was the Bill and Doug Show.